Namaste. Welcome back to the Tyldwick Tarot chat. It's an honor to guide this chat. And today we're going to be talking about the Hermit as well as the Nines and the Sun. So welcome to the conversation. My name is Sadhana and welcome to this amazing deck. If you've never seen it before, there's a couple of quotes and descriptions below in the description box. This is the printing house, Malpertuis, is in the UK, and this deck was created by Lovell, and his brother Joe has brought this back for our study and for our deep personal investigation. It's such a beautiful offering. So welcome, and know that whether you are here in the live chat or you are coming back and watching the replay, your comments and contributions are greatly appreciated. And welcome to Aria. So here we are. This is quite a card in this deck. It is one that feels to me a little bit like a color you would expect for the devil, or some other card, other energy that stirs you up. Hello, Perry. Welcome. When I think about this blood red color, and I'm also going to contrast the 9s and the 10s tonight as well too, so you can go ahead and get those out if you're looking at your own cards. And fortunately, we have great light here today. We've had some snow, and so the light coming in through the window is bright. Yeah, this red color is haunting. And when I think of the color red, there are so many powerful associations. And why the choice of this color for the Hermit? This particular statue of the Hermit appears to be in an underground chamber. And I know when we are looking at a Hermit in a Waite-Smith inspired deck, we tend to forget that psychopomp energy of the Hermit. Hermes, the one who was able to go between the worlds, between this world and the underworld, with no consequence, really. He could go back and forth. And while the Hermit in the Waite-Smith is up on a mountain top, sometimes we are traveling into caves on mountaintops. We are traversing into other worlds and other experiences. And yes, there are all kinds of deaths that we experience with the Hermit as well too. These can be highly transformative. There is a sense of there's a real haunting to this sort of energy. And I know people do fear this card. And of course, on a mundane level, it can simply represent aloneness, a period of aloneness, usually for some sort of self-discovery. But beyond that, there's something to this red. Of course, we have places in the world where we have red mud, red dirt. So some people may connect to that, thinking of an underground chamber. There's a coldness to that as well too. But I want to go into energies of root chakra and blood itself, and the energy of blood and what that means metaphorically as well as physically. You know, it does. It keeps us alive. It circulates around our body. And there's something very real about blood. You know, when we see blood, we know we are alive. We often know we're hurt. It's a rare commodity in times of tragedy, in times of earth-shattering events. We are typed. Our blood type symbolizes characteristics. Like blood is a very powerful symbol. And when I think about some of the cave paintings, some of the decks that have used cave art and how blood was also used for art, it was used like as paint. I think about paint on the face and how that was used for tribal symbolization in times of war, in times of confrontation, also in times of games. Yeah, I think a lot could arise in this card. It feels like a very unique Hermit card. And this Hermit is facing us directly, which is most unusual, as well as the perspective of the lantern. So the lantern is way overhead. And I believe there's a comment in the PDF that says, while the Hermit is fully aware of the lantern, we are not. And I think that's very humbling. That's very humbling. When we choose this kind of experience, I believe that we're at a time where we are we're ready for the silence. We're ready for the inner silence. We're ready to journey into the nitty-gritty of life. And because I do so much work with the chakras, and that my yogic experience has taught me so much, I will be paying attention to this, to family and what it means to be part of a family and a tribe, and blood through ancestry, blood through DNA. How is that connected to this journey? Are we making this journey on behalf of another ancestor, for example? So there's a lot. This deck, people ask, well, if it's a tarot deck, can we read it as a straight up tarot deck? And of course you can. But part of this process is to really consider the art, consider what you are picking up from the energy of the card. And for me, this is an incredibly powerful card. This may be a representation of the death of Seneca. I'm reading from the PDF. The Stoic philosopher, famed for his honesty and greatly regarded as a pre-Christian figure. This is a complicated and difficult image, standing in a dry fountain. Ah, yes, and I wanted to talk about that. So what do you think a dry fountain may symbolize? And there could be any number of scenarios why a fountain is dry. And that's to me, that feels highly significant as well, too. Perhaps a fear of letting the water flow. And maybe that's why we are journeying here into something that challenges us. The violent red, the sense of being underground, suggests some sort of imprisonment in a world of sense, even sensuality. Yes, and we could talk about sexual correspondences here as well, too. The Hermit has been stripped himself and is looking up towards the lantern in which he can see true light rather than the surrounding red filter of greed and ego. As we are, we can't see it, though. Okay. Lack of use. Yeah. I just did a big swallow. I think this might be a card that evokes a big swallow. Here I am. Here I am journeying deep into maybe an issue regarding my ancestry. Maybe this is going to bring up something to do with death. But it's more of it's not the symbol of death itself, but it's that journey of the understanding of the process of, perhaps this is an archetype that has that warrants deeper understanding. The light symbolizes many things. Knowledge, for one. It is a sign of hope and wisdom. It is a guiding force. And really, regardless of the illustration, for me, this is one of the guru cards. Guru literally means remover of darkness. And one of the reasons that we seek out a guru, an external guru, is because they hold the light for us, and they are able to guide us in a way that we cannot see. It's very hard to be your own guru. And of course, we all have that inner wisdom within, but sometimes it's necessary, to have an external guru. And so the number of potential associations here really is going to depend on you and where you are, what stage you're at, what your querent is looking to find understanding with. But let this card evoke more than you would with a can I say a normal hermit card. The element of earth may or may not be significant, and that's quite an interesting correspondence. So Virgo is often assigned to this card. Virgo is mutable earth, so there is change about in our earthly experience, right? There's some permutations that are happening in this earthly experience. So the Hermit is a card of motion and moving forward. So there's multiple layers here to reinforce the same concept. Something is not going to stay the same. Thank you for that, Perry. Shut down and isolated from the growth and regeneration of life. Many people would also fear this color. It looks like a martial color, right? It looks like the color of war. It does. It looks like war paint, blood. And we'll see this color again in another card we'll review today. So yeah, I'm sure I'll come back. There's all kinds of things here. It is a number 9. So we're going to look at the minor 9s as well. So 9s are pretty important numbers, right? It's the end of the journey. It's the end of the sequence of the single numbers. It's the last single number before we repeat the cycle again. So the 10 is the 1, and that is kind of a different energy. This is unique to itself. So there's a ripeness here. There's a fullness of energy, and sometimes that presents in a quite positive way, and other times it can be completely overwhelming. 9 is also a very sacred number, which connects beautifully with guru energy and seeking of wisdom and truth and knowledge. So 9, if you think of its associations through mythology and spirituality, 9 is, I often think of mathematically 6 is a perfect number, but 9, it doesn't get any more perfect than that. This is the triple 3. This is the triple goddess number, among other things. 9 is, when I have a reading and there are 9, multiple 9s in a reading, it feels more spiritually guided and less mundane. I tend to take those readings to a different level. So maybe I have the Hermit and 2 9s. There's something there that feels like I really need to pay attention. And if the querent is skewing mundane, then that is my cue to push a little deeper, to ask some questions that perhaps they're afraid to ask. When we journey into ourselves, when we journey into our own inner caves to know ourselves, this is certainly it's a bearing of the soul. And I'm sure you've seen photos of the sadhus in India, other countries as well too. That's just the country that I know the best. And they are very lightly clothed. There is a sense of vulnerability, humility, and there's this process of going into a cave just to sit and to be and to listen and to know. And yes, there are scorpions in those caves. There are dangers in those caves. But it's in those experiences that we have perhaps the greatest of moments and the greatest of closeness to God. Let's go to Arya's comment here. The red is disturbing to me. He's stuck in darkness and shadows, like he can't find the insights he thought he would when he retreated here. There's something about when we I'm not sorry, I'm pausing because I'm not sure which way to say this or to approach this. Sometimes when we have deep spiritual experiences, there is a reticence to emerge from that. It's like we don't want to break the sacred union. And I think of those who go to a ashram or a monastery and end up staying there much longer than expected. And it often takes one of the gurus to say, okay, it's time. You need to leave. You're going to go, I don't know, back to North America and open an ashram on the West Coast. There's a comfort that comes in getting lost in the mystical. It's heady. It can get very heady. And I think we need to be wary of this. We do need to come out of the darkness. We do need to follow the light and come back to the light. Yeah, it's a haunting. It's a very haunting card. And so when this card is paired with the other number 9 in the majors, this is the Sun in the Tyldwick. These are quite contrasting cards. The Sun is almost always seen as a positive card. It shines light and brightness and happiness and joy on any surrounding card. We often see there's often a sign of birth in this card. We see a baby. And this is a real contrast to the Hermit, where we see an old person. So we have baby and old person, birth and old age. While the colors of the Hermit are not uncomfortable, what about if we thought of this as a place where we can listen more closely to a mentor, to an advisor? If we're willing to go into and I'm going to use the word pain. I feel pain in this card. It's the blood. Like menstrual cramps or a bad accident where blood is spilt, or there is a battle and there is blood on the ground. Like this feels, we journey into that experience to move through something quite life-altering. And again, very unique to this deck, this color. And the contrast here. So look how brilliant the light is in the Sun, whereas the light in the Hermit is contained within the lantern. It's a really interesting contrast. And in the Sun card, we have Surya, the sun god. And Surya has many counterparts in different mythologies. Hi, Tamian. Surya is guiding his their horses across the sky. So Surya is the god of the sun that moves the sun across the sky during the day. So in a way, there's this cycle, right? So Surya goes across the sky and then goes into the darkness. And while we're in the darkness, we're with the hermit. And then while we're in the day, we're with Surya or other sun gods and goddesses. And I think this is a piece that is missed in the Waite Smith with the notion of the hermit. This inner journey, this journey into whatever darkness we are working with and working through. Yeah, I touched on that a little bit. Tamian, thank you for reiterating that. And there's a pace here as well too. So while this is a card of change and mutability and the shifting of seasons, and when I think of the mutable modalities in the zodiac, the energy tends to pick up. However, the Hermit to me feels like a real paced card. No problem. Quite a slow pace. Whereas the Sun card it's a little more energetic. It moves a little more quickly. So I think these are two really interesting cards to contrast. All right, so let's look at the minors, and I do have the contrasting tens on the table as well. And this one is so here we have Atlas, or you can choose another myth where, and it's funny because I know we all are familiar with different mythologies, right, around the world, and I'm sure there must be other countries where we have a myth similar to Atlas. Atlas carries the world. Atlas carries the heavens and the earth on his shoulders. And in a way, this feels a bit like a 10 of Wands. And I can also feel, I'm just kind of flashing through my brain right now, all of the nines of wand cards through the many decks that I have. And one of the keywords I put on the title for tonight is endurance. And I think there is an enduring quality to the Hermit as well, too. It is a certain pace. There's a certain level of dedication and commitment to the Hermit journey. And the same with the Nine of Wands. You know, it's not over yet. And it's a time to acknowledge our endurance. It's a time to acknowledge. So if I think of wands or staves, I'm thinking of a fulfillment of our dharma. Like you, in this card, you have done good work. You have made great steps toward your great work. And I know that means different things in different schools of thought. But when I say your great work, I mean your life's purpose. And I think there's something kind of very highly relatable between the Hermit and this Nine of Staves. And Perry comments, heroic and strength. And I think there's something quite poignant about the 9-10 series of cards where we have the X in the woodblock We can see loosely a tree of life form in the stacked wood. But for me, more than anything, it is that expression, chop wood, carry water. Chop wood, carry water. Just do the work. All of these paths, whether they are staves or cups or swords, are going to lead us to a higher frequency, to enlightenment. And one of the ways to get there is to chop wood and carry water. We just do the work, and we do it for a good, unbeknownst to us, for the greater good. Some people have the grace of living in community where they can be responsible for chopping wood for the whole community. There is great purpose in every kind of task. And that expression, chop wood, carry water, of course, I can take that back to any of the karma yoga that I've done, any of the seva in different times of my life. But I also go back to early years in Japan and the many, many temples I traveled around the country. It's a very long archipelago, lots of remote sacred sites all over the country. And many of these temples are atop mountains. And you can take a bus part way to the lower part of the shrine or the temple, but often there are hundreds of steps to go up to the highest part of the temple or the shrine. And of course, there is no running water up there. There is, there's no cable pulley system. Everything is carried up, and there are pails, and anybody can assist by carrying water up hundreds and hundreds of stairs, and among other things. And I think about that. I think about, if we want to understand spirituality, we need to be willing to do the work. And that work can be very humbling. And I think there's a story here in all of these cards about that. Endurance and commitment to what? Commitment to one's ever evolving journey. Yeah. All right, so that is the 9 of Staves. Now, this takes us in a little bit different journey, different direction. This is the 9 of Cups. It's a really beautiful card. I'm going to put the 10 of Cups on the table as well, too, because that's something very interesting here with these two. We have some gorgeous perfume bottles on a desk that is divided into, there's 2 drawers in this desk, and remember how important that is. Before I go on, let's go back to Arya's comment. This one isn't quite so sad looking due to the roses and foliage, so different from the red brick wall of the Hermit. Okay. I would suggest that when we sign off from here tonight, that each of you try a 9 card spread. And I don't have my other Tyldwick. Well, I guess I could shuffle this one. It'll take quite a bit of shuffling because it's all sorted. It depends on the time, if I have time to do a spread. But I would suggest doing a 9 card, and I can at least walk you through the process if you aren't familiar with a portrait spread. Just really honing in on what is my message here, or what is this discomfort here? with this color, with this number? What is it that I need to learn at this time about this place in the numbers? Okay. All right, so these beautiful perfume bottles arranged on this table, on this desk. And I don't know if you remember, but there were many places in this deck where there was emphasis on the number of drawers. And there's no mention of it this time. I clearly here see a division of 2. But also, if you zoom in and look at the perfume bottles, they're beautiful. They're cut glass and different colors and very ornamental. Something quite fundamental here connects this to our red theme and the Hermit, in that, I don't know if you're aware, but each of the senses is connected to a chakra. And the sense of smell is connected to the root chakra. We can tap into the root chakra energetically by focusing on the sense of smell. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that, because when there's, how there's smells sometimes that they bring up a memory or they take us back home. Smells can repulse really quickly as well too. They are so basal, it's such a fundamental sense. And that feels like a really important connection to the Hermit card. And we were talking about ancestry and the idea of what that bloody color represents. Now, that feels very opposed to what Nine of Cups generally represents. It's a card of happiness. It's a card of light. Fits more naturally with the Sun card, I would say. I would say there's a bit of a collection here on the table. Somebody has traveled and acquired these beautiful bottles, and they are all on display. I don't imagine they're dusty. It's a well cared for. I'm sure there's some beautiful doilies underneath, a beautiful lace tablecloth. It feels like a pretty special place. There's nothing on the wall behind. And in the water cards, just let me get that suit out. That's something I've observed in a few of the cards, not all of them. In the 6, it may only be, we have this one with the sort of muted background, big open sky. So there's a sense of spaciousness in many of these cards. I don't think the objects, how there's that sense of smugness sometimes in the Nine of Cups? And I think that's just the way that Pamela Coleman Smith drew that face. In the Osho Zen, it's the laziness card. I think here more than anything, so let's go back to this idea of endurance, right? There's been a life well lived. A life well lived. Maybe this card represents emotional satisfaction, because I'm sure I've seen a Nine of Cups with a cat, sort of licking its paw on the milk or something, milk in a saucer. Life is good, but it's also well lived in that we have journeyed through, think of Hermit, journeyed through life fully. We have experienced many things. Perry connects with cinnamon and says the placement of the bottles is Small to large and in pairs. Mm. Yeah, it is. It's like they've been arranged carefully. There's consideration here. And maybe tomorrow the arrangement will be different. Or do you think that this is significant and there's something about the sequence, small to large? And again, I think that's up to you in your reading. So what if on this side of the card, there was something big, metaphorically or physically, tangibly? And what if something on the right side was little? I feel a lot of heart in this card. And again, I feel an ancestral connection here. I think of my grandmother, and she used to wear shalimar. Shalimar had quite a strong smell to it. I'll never forget that. But I wanted to put the Ten of Cups here as well, too, because there's something about this contrast in that in the Nine of Cups, the bottles are out on display. So they would be used. They would be available for use. Whereas in the Ten of Cups, they're in a case. They're protected. The doors are closed. Right? So these two cards have quite a different energy. And I think that they could speak loudly in that regard. So I think it's important to observe that contrast here between the 9 and the 10 of Cups. And I like the idea of the 10 of Cups as a life well lived. And the 9 of Staves is also a life well lived. It's just that it has the experience feels a little different. It feels a little different. Let's contrast this with the, sorry, Amber's snoring at my feet here. I don't know if you can hear her. Let's see if we can carry on and deepen the understanding of this theme with the swords. So these are the two cards I wanted to contrast, was the Hermit and the Ten of Swords. And I talked about the Ten of Swords. We did an episode where I compared the aces. You might want to watch it again. The aces and the tens. And in this Ten of Swords, I feel like we are in a secret chamber. There's something that's been locked away, like an old secret's been locked away. And really interesting story. Sorry, I'm just acknowledging this comment. Right? It's kind of important. There's just this really interesting theme in these cards. So when I look at the 9 of Swords, this ghost-like figure, I wonder if it's their secret that is locked in this closed chamber in the 10 of Swords. And when I look at all of these cards in combination, this is big work. You know, you need help here. This is, I mean, you need a mentor, you need support. This is not a, this is big. This is work that, you know, you probably need a team of support here. It's funny. I've had quite a few people come to me lately saying, "Yeah, I've been listening to guided meditations and I've been trying to figure this out on my own, but you know, this is so difficult to figure out your own stuff all by yourself." And what I was saying about the Hermit card and these challenges and journeys and darkness and difficulties that we move through individually, it's really hard to do it by yourself. And so that's why seeking out and I use the word guru because it literally means dispeller of darkness, or mentor, somebody to keep holding up the light so you can continue to go forward. And I feel as if the figure in the Nine of Swords is at that place where they're ready, to reach out. Oh, the stories I could weave with these cards. And right now, like energetically, I can feel my chest and the front of my chest, and it's closed, and it's like a locked box, and it wants to burst open. There's a little. It's funny. It's very front in the front of the body, but these cards are really impactful, so emotional. I would not suggest using these cards with somebody you didn't know. And I know many of you do, many of you don't read for others. The selection of decks when reading for, like if you are a clinical therapist of some sort, these would be great. This would be a great deck to work with. I mean, just metaphorically examining the rooms and the chambers of the house. What is locked away? What is open? What is closed? What is out? What is in? And when I look at these cards and I think about, there's been a presentation. I'm working in the school system now, and there's been a presentation for the grade 6s and 7s. Yes, very young people, about coming out as whatever. They did talk about all sorts of genders, couples, but it was immensely uncomfortable for a lot of these kids. Just to talk about it, just to listen. And I know we all have various closets to come out of, lots of skeletons and closets. And many people who are doing this work are healing old family secrets. This is the Suit of Swords, after all, right? It's full of secrets and lies and half-truths and things we kept buried in chambers because that's the way it was done. So we journey with the Hermit into these chambers to open the light, to find our way to the light. I mean, it's extraordinary how these cards connect and tell this story. Okay, one more suit. One more suit. I mean, I could talk about these cards for hours. And I'm really happy today that we have so much light here because it makes this so much easier. Today, when I was out on the playground supervising the kids sliding on the snow, I was like, I didn't have sunglasses. And you know, there's something that can happen to your retina if you're out in the sun too long. And I was like, I know I'm not out there long enough for anything to happen, but it was that bright. Yeah. Everything has a blessing and something, right? A good and a bad side. So here we are in the coins. And we are all worthy of respect and love, with nurturing and kindness. So incredibly sad to be alone with misunderstanding and judgment. And, you know, often people don't ask for help because they don't feel they deserve it. It's very common. We are all worthy of support. And I know myself in my darkest times, it's really hard to ask for help. And so when a hand is offered, and I think also too, if you're on the other side, it's important to know that to be doling this out in baby doses, because it's very difficult for people to accept help, support, guidance. Yeah. All right, so time. Sorry, we need to go on to the last suit. This is the coins suit, and we have this, and I know we've seen this in different, because I've talked about this card before. I think in the first episode I was putting cards inside and outside, and there was a bit of a discussion about this card, whether it was inside or outside and where it was. And I can imagine a few different scenarios, but we have a bunch of cases, and the cases are all closed, and the door is closed, and there is a padlock on the door. And I don't think the padlock is open. I could get my magnifying glass. Let me get the trusty magnifying glass. Yeah, listening is very important. Okay. No, I think that padlock is closed. So that's also something quite worthy of paying attention to in this deck, and that is things that are open and things that are closed. I mean, I always pay attention to that, but there's something in this deck that feels significant. Now, these cases to me look like they're ready to be moved. They are not stacked. This is not a storeroom. Has somebody come back from a journey? Or are they about to go on a journey? Are these cases going to be put into that room where the closed door is? Think about 9. Think about 9 as, let's go back. I like that word, endurance, for the 9s. What is the fulfillment here? What is the fulfillment? What is the fullness? Maybe what is in those cases is significant. Is there a story to be told here? Again, is this another story of a journey? And I think with the Hermit being a journey card and having the cases in this card, that there may be something to that. It's very still, isn't it, Perry? Yeah, it doesn't seem an adventurous preparation to me. I wonder, yeah, you know how, so the 9 of, the receptive 9s tend to be more positive than the active 9s in the tarot due to their placement on the tree of life. The receptive energies tend to do better in the real world than the 3D world, than the swords and the wands. So I want to remind myself, there's something very real here. What is this? What is this reality here? And what I'm thinking of is that we are being forced to move. We're packing up our life's belongings. And maybe, I mean, this is just a story that's coming to mind, but the cases were inside that door. Now we have closed the door and the cases are there, ready to be loaded on the carriage to take us to the next chapter of our life. I think this could fit quite nicely into the story with a Chariot card. And then Tammy has a slightly more, this sounds more like Downton, um, Downton Abbey. Yeah. This feels like lords and ladies preparing for arrival at their country homes. In this scenes, the servants have arrived ahead of them to ready the house. I like that. Yeah. You know, this is why, and I know I keep repeating this, questions and refinement of questions. And sometimes we can ask a question, and then I think it's really important to ask, because often when we're using a deck like this, we're using it for ourselves, right? Why am I asking this question? What is it I really want to know? What is motivating this question? Through that, like get into that, then shuffle the cards and then lay out your spread. When we compare the 9 of coins and the 10 of coins, I see something quite orderly on the right, something a little more chaotic on the left. I don't know. It feels to me, I think these 9-10 comparisons are full of ooh, I know what else I see. Sorry, I didn't finish my sentence. But when I look at the 10, with those two barrels side by side, it's almost as if they form an opening and a gateway. What if I imagined that wall were a door? And that this 10 of Pentacles, this final 10 in the tarot, was like, I don't know, like a world card, like here we are, and then we're about to move this door open and pass through those two barrels, pass through that gateway. I hadn't seen it that way before, but there's something to that. But in both of these cards, there is a lot, like a physical, quantifiable abundance in both of these cards. There's no shortage of belongings. Okay. So I said I would share with you just a few thoughts on the 9 card, and I think it would be great to do one now. I have a little bit of time, so just give me a moment here. I'll shuffle up. So think about this number 9 and what number 9 means to you, what it represents, what's going on in your life right now at this time. What is coming to a fulfillment? Like use this reflection, use the theme of this reflection as something significant in your own world, in your own life. Better get the rest of the majors too, so I have a complete deck. What is my lesson in the number 9 at this time? Does the Hermit have a particular does the Hermit have something he wants to present to me? What is he shining light on for me? So just take a moment and think of some questions. Perhaps it's regarding the divinity, the perfect number 9, 333. And I'm just taking a moment here because I'm thinking I'm not sure what is coming to an end. What is at its ripeness right now. Or because when I think of the Hermit, I think, sometimes, do you know that expression, something's gotta give? Something's gotta give. And it's because we don't want to give up that something that the Hermit presents itself. Okay, one more shuffle. So I'm going to use the Hermit as the significator, and I'm going to show you how I do this 9 card. And I will I'm just going to move the camera. I don't want to make you seasick. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay. Am I going to cut? Yeah, I'm going to cut just a single cut. And then I'll just show you this process. Okay, so 9 of coins is on the bottom. So I'm going to make a note in my journal of that. And what does that mean? That means this card is furthest away. Is that because of avoidance, or it's just distant in time? Any of those may apply. So now what I'm going to do is leaf through the cards and find the Hermit. Okay, so there is the Hermit. Now, my Hermit, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so I have 4 cards on one side of the Hermit. So it's near the top of the pile, right? And so I'm going to take the 4 cards on the right and the 4 cards on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I have another 9 here as well. Cool. So my 9 of coins is on the bottom. And this is one way to do a 9 card. There's lots of ways you can do this, but I'm just showing you this one way. So the Hermit is going to go in the center of the spread. And then I'm going to arrange the other 4 cards above and below. So here is my Hermit. And this is the top of the pile, right? So the Hermit is going to go here. And this one was next to the Hermit. Okay, so, oh, I know you can't see them all. I was afraid that, oh, I know I have a zoom out. Hold on, sorry. Technology, yay, I can zoom out a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'll have to tell you what they are. I may not know what they are, but okay. So this beautiful spread is one that paints a picture. It's a portrait spread. We have 9 cards framing my theme. Maybe I'm not facing what is at its fulfillment, in that maybe I'm avoiding it. And it's funny that that expression came to mind, something's got to give. It's like okay, maybe there is a bubble that's ready to burst. That sort of energy. So what is immediately surrounding the Hermit is present, and I have a Knight. I have a Knight of Cups, so something, a Knight. So another card of movement, Knights for me are mutable. I often attach them to mutable signs. For me, Knight of Cups is very Piscean, and it fits kind of beautifully actually with Hermit energy. And then on the other side is the Chariot. So in the center of this reading, I have 3 cards of movement. Something, whether, and I was saying to you, I don't know what's ready to change. I don't know what's ready to shift. But I think having the Chariot on one side and the Knight of Cups on the other side is telling me that, yeah, something is in motion. And of course, everything is always in motion. I get that. But these are pretty significant mover shaker cards. The other thing about the Knight of Cups that feels significant to me is if I'm reading this in Piscean energy, which really speaks to, and I have a hard time expressing this, but when Pisces cards come up in a reading, I feel like there's been a lot of emotion absorbed. And they feel kind of heavy to me. But at the same time, they feel connected to be mindful of all that I've been through and all that I've done. And the Chariot could be read also as a water card, as a Cancer card. So the Hermit here is asking me to spend some time with my emotional body. Maybe to get out of the busyness of the day-to-day and to do a little bit of emotional journaling and reflection. Many of you know me. I'm a very busy person. I don't I don't take a lot of time for my own self-reflection, and so these feel quite significant. So when I'm doing a 9 card, I spend quite a bit of time looking at the middle here. What is above, what is overhead, is overhead, quite literally in the head. It can also be a reflection of what is coming down from above. So higher consciousness. And I have the Ace of Cups there. That card's easy to recognize. I have another Knight. And I have the Page of Swords, sort of an honest truthfulness. Pages and Aces also feel like cards of change. And it's funny that those are overhead because I'm saying to you, I don't really feel aware of what is changing. So I'm going to have to sit with this and do some journaling. Now, what is below, in contrast, I'm often not aware of. It can be the root cause of. It can be what is buried or under the surface. It could be, karma, DNA, what's below. What's underneath all this? And so it can be a little more difficult to understand. And so I look at these cards and I sit with that kind of reflection. Now, this is the Atlas card, is it not? So I shuffled these cards how many times? So many. And I ended up with a 9. So here's a 9. There was a 9 on the bottom of the pile. I felt like there was something else that was... Okay, anyway. This is a queen or something, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a Queen of Staves. And that's the Four of Cups. With that battle in the tapestry on the background. I'm going to have to go back and look at that, see about that card. So I have a knight. And in this tapestry, there's a battle in the background. Four of Cups, foundation of emotion, the basis. Honest to God, this kind of feels like a Marielle reading. Like I could go into some pretty secret corners here. So that's my process. I kind of look at the now. I look at what is coming from through higher consciousness, what might be below. And then you can also break this out into, if you want to do a little bit of past, present, future. So you can do past, present, and future. So when I look at what is ahead or what is unfolding is the Ace of Cups, the Chariot, and the Atlas card. So something, is it unexpected, or is it something that I've been avoiding? And now, as I've been talking a little bit, and I'm sensing what this may be about for me. And then another one of my favorite things about the 9 card is to look at the chess. So with the 9 card, you can look at chessboard positions. So you can look at diagonals. You can look at knighting relationships. So as an example, you can look at the relationship between this card, the first card, whatever yours is, minus a Knight of Staves. And I can look at 2 down, 3 over. And so the Chariot and the Knight of Staves are knighted, as well as the Chariot is knighted to the 4 of Cups. The 9 of Staves is knighted to the Page of Swords. So there may be something in that. And you can also read the diagonals. So usually what I do when I'm teaching the tarot is I write out all of these steps for the students and have them pull apart the reading layer by layer. Now, why is doing this sort of thing important when you're reflecting on the number 9? Well, the number 9 is a very layered number. It is the fulfillment of the suit. It's rich, and it's really worthwhile when you do a 9 card to take your time and maybe read this over a number of days, because there's a lot that you can unfold here, a lot that you can learn. Okay, I hope that is gives you a little more insight into the 9 card, because it's a really powerful reading, and I guess it's time for me to do a reading for myself. Yeah. And isn't it interesting? I mean, we have talked about all of these cards. There are a number of majors we haven't looked at in depth, but I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to go through the deck. I will reorder my deck and figure out. I'd like to spend a few more weeks with this tarot deck for sure. And if there is in particular any themes that you would like to address, let me know and maybe put them in the comments for this video, and then I can plan for the next few weeks. And I haven't honestly thought of what I'm going to do for the next deck yet. And it likely will be some sort of contemporary Marseille, just to keep in my theme for 2024. And if you have any requests for that as well too, let me know. Okay? So have a pleasant evening, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Thanks all so much for your contributions. Namaste.